Kia ora, welcome to the Guerin Report. As always, thank you for taking time out of your Monday night to join us. It's been 31 consecutive Mondays we've brought you the show. It's been a wonderful experience for us here at Trackside and our small team to hear from some of the leaders of world racing, some of the superstars. Tonight, we're going to go back and pick out some of our favourite bits from the season to give you a taste of what you can go back on to trackside.co.nz to check out some of these great interviews. We started way back in September with James McDonald, the world's best jockey. We went into the interview wanting to start as we wanted to continue for the season. No mucking around, straight to the tough stuff. James, tell us about the most dramatic moment in your career.
It definitely changed me. I realised there was more to it than just what I was going through. I had a fantastic job, obviously riding for Godolphin, arguably the most powerhouse stable in Sydney. But I probably, at that time, it sounds silly to say, but things were coming probably just too easy, and rides were put on a platter, and it was like, yes, I was going out there doing my best and getting good results. But it was probably at a time where I was missing something, and so a step back from the sport was the best thing ever. I spent a lot of time with Katie, and I probably could safely say we wouldn't be together if I didn't have that time out, because we were just met up at that time, and then I was able to spend 18 months with her. So it broadened a lot of things, and I'll tell you one thing it did do when I did get back. It made me so goddamn hungry. I just wanted to be I hate saying it, but I want to be really good.
It's a difficult thing to go through. Is part of you glad it happened?
No, well, I regret what happened. And I'm not glad it happened, because I could think of better ways to...
Has it made you a better rider?
I think it has, yeah, for sure. It definitely has. Due to the fact that I put a lot more work into it now, and I love what I do. Like, dead set, love it. I think that shows in how I ride.
Shows in how you celebrate.
Well, exactly, and the other thing is it all starts meaning something now, and I suppose we all, when you're young and you're up there and you're flying, it just seems you've got no responsibilities, and now for the last 6 years, I've been back 6 years since my disqualification, and like I said, that rise it's happened really quick. I've won 6 consecutive Sydney premierships. I'm only 2 away from, well, hopefully I'll get there if I can, to the all-time record in Sydney. So everything's in grasp, and there are things I want to do, and I'm hoping I can do it, but touch wood, injuries and stay away. But yeah, it's made me very driven.
Raw honesty from J-Mac. We wanted more of that, so we asked him, are you actually the best jockey in the world? Then we went across town to Rosehill and asked his sometimes boss, Chris Waller, the same question.
If you ask me that when you're legging me up on a horse, yes. But ask me now who I think the best jockey in the world is, I'd have probably 1 or 2 in front of me, that's for sure.
Who are the 3 best jockeys you've seen? In the flesh, of the modern era, of the ones that you know? The
3.
ins and outs of 3.
If you give me 10.
I'll tell you what, 3. I was only going to give you 1 about a week ago, but we've matured to 3.
I think James McDonald will become one of, if not the greatest. He is still so young, and what he's achieved in such a short time, I think would be second to none for the same. He is likely to go to number 1. I'm going to leave him out of the top 3 though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, this will go down well when J-Mac watches
No,
it.
because I've just told him he's going to be number 1. He'll be fine.
Yeah,
he'll be fine.
He'll survive.
He is a superstar, and he's got an amazing gift with horses, and it's a privilege to work with him. And I'm seeing him mature. He's probably seeing me mature as well.
When I was flying to Sydney to interview Chris Waller, there was one question above all others, one that stuck in my mind. I had to ask him. Here it is. Is being Chris Waller fun?
No. No, it's not. It's intense. Very intense. Sacrifices to family, sacrifices to friends, and time management has to be pretty sharp. And you wouldn't say you're rushing things, but you brush over a few things of normal life that you could pay a bit more attention to. So, not many people would know that. Getting up in the morning working with horses is fantastic. That's great. I don't ever get sick of getting out of bed. I bounce out of bed each morning, but as long as we're well prepared. So being well prepared helps my day. And if I'm well prepared, someone might like to live in my shoes for a few days, but they might get sick of it pretty quick.
He's a national racing treasure, is Chris Waller. A very different type of trainer is Bjorn Baker, but what a gem he was. We asked him about what it was like being the son of the great Murray Baker. How often does he ring you with a bit of fatherly advice?
Daily.
Every
Every day, just about. Every time I have a loser, you got those tactics wrong. Why haven't you got McDonald on? I'm like, because I didn't win the lotto this week, mate. I can't get him.
Every day?
Often after a race day, definitely every race day, you often give me a ring, and but he loves it. He loves following it. He still loves racing. That's his core passion. He loves sports and racing, and no, but he's got some wise words. Just it's a little bit harder when you don't quite train the calibre of horse that he had at times.
The planes weren't just going Auckland to Sydney, they were heading to Singapore and Hong Kong as well. We wanted to record the end of Singapore racing with our own Donna Logan, and we headed to Hong Kong to talk to the most powerful man in world racing, the man they call EB.
It's pretty historical, isn't it? And emotions are very high. I farewelled one rider this morning who's been with me since the day I arrived in Singapore. He's actually ridden it here for 31 years, and I cried. Just didn't want to, have to go through it. It's very, very tough.
It's obviously an economic story and a government story on some levels, but it's a very personal story for the people. When we were driving around the track this morning, these people are like a very large family.
Yeah, it is a big family, and like I say, some of these workers here have been in this industry and this job alone for their entire lives, and they're struggling to find replacement work. They haven't got the education. They've never worked with machinery, for an example. They've probably never driven a lorry. It's not that easy just to transit into something new.
New Zealand is not a big country population-wise, but we like to believe, we have a very special relationship with Hong Kong and racing in Hong Kong. Are we right in thinking that?
Yes, I think in a way, if you look at New Zealand, when you look only at the number of horses we export from New Zealand, so it's around 15%. So I think that is already a significant impact on our horse population. We have a lot of talents from New Zealand, as we have now Richard as a trainer. We have, in a way, definitely a lot of our owners have even horses in New Zealand. And I feel New Zealand, from a breeding perspective, it has the best land. If I would breed in the southern hemisphere, I would definitely use New Zealand as my base for breeding, because the quality. And the interesting thing is, if you look at New Zealand had, due to not have access to so many stallions, but the performance of New Zealand bred horses outperforms a lot of times their pedigrees due to the fact that they have such good bone quality. And I think with more investment going to New Zealand bloodstock, I think New Zealand bloodstock can definitely lift its standard even further. And I can see there's more investment coming in New Zealand, and the world pools will help. And the same has happened in South Africa. So we hopefully can, in a way, lift the whole standard and create even a stronger industry.
One of my favourite times of the year is sales time out of Karaka. This year it was very special. A $2.4 million filly, the most expensive one ever purchased in this country, by Glenn Ritchie and his wife Lynn, where Glenn gave us a new way of measuring what horses are worth. She seemed even more excited than you. She seemed delighted, and she clearly supports your vision for buying these quality horses.
Well, you know, from a personal point of view, I kind of look at it and you say 2.4 million, and of course the industry that we used to be in were buses, and you think, oh, that's only 3 new buses, and you think, what the hell?
So that's Richie's Coach Lines, of course, and everybody who's lived in New Zealand would have seen those around.
We sold the company, and you know, it still carries on with Richie's and whatever. We've still got a few around the place in Australia and whatever. So yeah.
So why racehorses? What do you love about racing horses, and why would you want to purchase a horse like this? What does it do for you?
Well, after we sold the business, Lynn said to me, what do you want to do? He said, I wouldn't mind getting a racehorse. And one night, shall I say, very late at night, after a few reds, filled in a form and sent it on to the Wallace stable.
Speaking of sales, 2 of the titans of the New Zealand industry is the man who owns Karaka and the man who owns the Karaka sales ring, Sir Peter Vella and David Ellis. Would you think there'll still be physical sales at the Karaka sales ground? Because it's such a beautiful place, and so many, I know it's impossible to tell, but so many people love going there. Would that still be realistic in 20 years? Because it's a giant piece of property, which apart from the hotel, probably gets used 20 days a year.
Yeah, that's a question for somebody else. 20 years is a little bit far down the line for me, but I would be surprised if, in fact, the greenfields, I suspect, probably if you started a new property in 5 years' time, add another 20 to that, and you need to have bought it at an area that you can redevelop that as well and move to another one. It's just life goes on.
We've all seen you bidding on horses at Karaka. We've seen you at other sales too, but that's the place you see most at home. Who makes the final decision? Because I've seen the team talk in the VIP room on the morning. Who makes the final decision on price and what you'll go to? And how often do you go over that, maybe more than Karen or the team would like?
Well, it's a team effort. We put a price on each horse, but on the ones I really, really like, I don't show a lot of discipline, I'm afraid. And for example, with Probabeel, we had $280,000, and the boys said to me, "That's enough, boss, no more for that." And I said, "Look, guys, I'm just going to buy this filly." And we were lucky. We paid $360,000 for her, and we're really lucky. 3 or 4 days later, we sold it to Brendan and Joe Lindsay, who have been great supporters of the stable.
Among all the emotional stories and the forecasting for the future, we've tried to speak to the bosses of the industry, Bruce Sharrock, his replacement, Matt Balesti, about where your industry is going. But you can't get away from the human stories. Here is Ricky May for the first time talking about the day he died on a racetrack, and Brent Thompson on why if he hadn't stopped drinking, the worst could have come for him too.
Like, I can't remember, I can remember that day, and you know, I remember winning a race for, Mark and Benny were joint forces then, about race 3, a maiden race, I won that. I can actually remember that, and then I remember having a cup of coffee with Nathan Williamson in the driver's room, but that's sort of cut-off point about race 4. Can't remember anything after.
So have you watched the footage?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, we're going to play it as part of this because you said we could. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty strange. It doesn't look real. It looks surreal.
The lane, pacemaker up front, AG's White Sox. He's under a very firm grip from RT, who might have had an issue here. Looks like he's fainted in the cart. What do we do here? This is dead set serious here.
You made a big choice, which deserves some congratulations. You gave up the drink. Why?
Bottom line to it, no doubt it wasn't doing me any good. It was a bit of a fork in the road, which I made a decision to change. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation here today. Some of the greatest times I've had in my life have been on the booze, and probably mixed it with some of the best too, Michael, in the career that I had. But you know, sometimes you have to take stock, and I'm absolutely pleased for a number of reasons. Health, job. You know, we have a great job with the New Zealand bloodstock. I say that without any fear of contradiction. There, I'm possibly the luckiest person to this side of the Tasman to have a position with them and in great company. But from a health point of view, I decided it was time, and wasn't a decision that was terribly hard on me.
Was it one of those things you drunk for the wrong reasons, or did you used to arc up when you were on the jar? Because people can be very different when they've had a few drinks.
Yeah.
Did you not like yourself as much when you were having a few? Or did you like it too much?
bit of both. But more importantly, I think you know it certainly led to depression. We all hear about sports people after their career, and I can sort of concur with some of that.
In human stories of triumph, there is always also some tragedy. The last 18 months have been the best ever on the racetrack for Stephen Marsh, the most challenging of it. We were fortunate enough to have him open up to us about the passing of his mum, Kay. We mentioned the fact that the last 18 months have been the best of your career. Last summer was very challenging. You won all those big races, but very sadly, you and the family lost your mum, Kay. Wonderful woman, everybody in racing loved. I met her a couple of times, and it must have been comforting for you as much as it can be in those situations, that she loved what you were doing, and that success must have buoyed her at a really challenging time for the whole family.
Yeah, it was, the stable was going brilliant and certainly challenging. I'm certainly not going to cry, but yeah, I mean, it was a real challenge, and I suppose having the horses going so good and having her so proud was great.
We've got some footage here of you when you were younger and your mum, and we've got to look at it now because this young footage makes you look very young, although you haven't aged too badly. Here's Stephen Marsh with mum talking about his priorities as a younger man.
Does mum help out much physically in the stabling area?
She does actually. She mucks out 15 boxes a morning, and she basically takes care of those boxes. She's good, a big help.
And you do all your own ironing?
No, I leave that one up there as well.
But you do some cooking then?
She enjoys her cooking.
You do the gardening then?
Oh, for sure. I do all the outside work, lawns, gardens.
Wash your own clothes?
She enjoys that again.
Likes the floor?
Oh, we leave that one up there.
Gee, you've been a huge contributor to the family. You do the gardening. Have you expanded the cooking repertoire in the last couple of years?
Well, I'll tell you what, I must have been a good little liar in those days because Mum wouldn't let me start the lawnmower.
Marshy wasn't the only one to open up to us on the Guerin Report this year. We went to Hong Kong and spoke to Jamie Richards about how brutal it can be to be away from your home when things aren't going well.
I find if I watch the races at home too much or speak to everybody at home too much, I actually miss it more. So I just sort of try and stay in my lane here. And when things are going well here, it's the greatest place in the world. But when things aren't going very well, it's it can be a bit of a lonely place, and get a bit emotional just thinking about how difficult it can be. But Danielle's here; she loves it. We've got Spencer. We live in a beautiful apartment. We've got a good quality of life, so just got to suck it up and get on with it.
Well, we couldn't take the opportunity to catch up with Jamie without taking the bonus of talking to the wonderful Danielle Johnson about the end of her riding career. That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Especially now, having
got a couple of Group
child.
1s and you've done your job.
There's nothing like the feeling of winning on a horse. Like any jockey will vouch for me here. Like it's just something that Jamie has a winner, we're a team, but it's just so different being on a horse winning yourself. I certainly miss that, but I don't miss it enough to say I'm going to come back riding.
Hasn't just been about purely racing this season on the Guerin Report. We've spoken to Cameron George, the Warriors boss, about racing as entertainment, and the great Brendan McCullum, who loves his racing on Scoring 300, coaching England, his late great mate Shane Warne, and the crossover between racing and cricket. What do you love about racing? What made you think this is something which isn't going to be a hobby for me, this is something I genuinely care about?
Outside of sport, I find it almost impossible to find that kind of adrenaline where, you know, when you've seen like the story, you either breed the horse or you buy the horse. As we all know, you buy a horse as a weanling or a yearling. You go through that sort of rearing phase, you go through the growing out, the preparation, the breaking in, you choose your trainer. Like, you go through all of that process, and then come race day and they fly the gates and you're watching and they're positioning themselves amongst the running. You're trying to work out the tempo of the race, where they're going to come from, what's going to happen when they hit the top of the straight and they all start fanning out and you see your horse has got a little bit under the engine. To me, it's just like, that is everything. Like, I love the...
Does it replicate hitting a 6 at the MCG, and when your horse hits the line with that emotion charge, is it a similar buzz, or is the other thing the thing you were good at, so you were supposed to do the first thing, with the second one you can't control?
Yeah, you're probably right, actually. I was supposed to be good at it. Most times I wasn't, but I was supposed to be good.
I think you were okay.
It's kind of very similar in regards to my career. Like, I would try and take care of all my preparation, and probably a lot of people didn't realise, I actually, away from the way I played the game, I was very methodical in my process and planning and structure. I didn't do it in the way that people would understand or see, but I'd do it behind closed doors.
Does that allow you the freedom to be more cavalier?
Gives you the opportunity to show your flair.
Straight after talking to Baz, we spoke to a Matamata great Lance O'Sullivan. We've asked a lot of people this season what they would do with a magic wand to fix the ills of racing. Let's say Lance's answer was very thorough.
Where do I start? Look, look, New Zealand racing is getting better. We still have a long way to go. You like to see everybody working together more, as opposed than making decisions for their own benefit. I'd almost like to see a dictator come in and say, hey, that's what we're going to do, just like they have in Hong Kong.
Peter V'landys.
Exactly. Well, look what he's done for the Australian race and for Sydney. And, you know, the trouble with here, you know, the politics, trying to get anything done, you know, there's a lot of great ideas, but, you know, how long does it take to make changes in our industry? And, you know, look, I've got nothing against the jump racing, but, you know, you look at it and, you know, how many trainers actually train jumper? I just saw about 10 people just turn off the TV right now. But, you know, there's a lot of things. You know, I'll tell you something that I don't love is our judiciary system, where the stipendiary steward lays the charge, the JCA panel hears the charge, of course the steward gives his evidence, then we get a right to reply, and then the JCA panel then go back to the stipendiary steward and say, what's your opinion? Well, you know, that's just stupid. He's already had his say, you know, and you don't get the right to reply. So, you know, that system doesn't work. You know, it's certainly, you know, you look at the Australian system, they've got some very competent people making decisions there, and they don't get it wrong very often from what I can see, but I'd like to see our system change.
At a time of such change for the racing industry, it's always great to think of the smartest people in the game. Here are some of the thoughts of the great John Massara. What advice would you give now, 6 years later, to the bosses of New Zealand racing, whether that be Entain, who have come on board, or in fact NZTR?
I think there has to be a bit of a review of where we are at this point. Yes, the commercial activities of the TAB, of your TAB, have been joint ventured, which is one of the key recommendations I made at the time, and I wasn't the first one to make those. There were previous advisors that had thought the same, and some of the others. But I think it's time probably to take stock now that this major one has been achieved, and ensure that not the rest of the recommendations don't go by the by.
because we're getting a bit of a sugar hit with this one. Just have a feeling that might happen.
And our final guest for the year, just last week, was the Deputy Prime Minister and our Minister for Racing, the Right Honourable Winston Peters. We put it straight to him about the future of greyhound racing in New Zealand.
As much as we've tried, this is not excusable, the level of injury and serious injury, or absence of material information, or no record of a dog going missing. These things is not acceptable. And so, difficult as it was, and having been a supporter of the industry in the past, we went across the political divide and asked others, look, we've got to do something here. What do you think? And they all agreed. Parliament unanimously voted for this. Our job, of course, and it already started with the police in many years ago, is to rehome these dogs, and 2,900 will be rehomed. And we're out there with a serious team of people doing that and preparing for it now. At the same time, I've just heard they're going to take me on, possibly in court. Well, let's see, because I'm not having an ego contest here.
Gee, there's been some intellectual firepower on the show over the last 30 weeks, but our most loved guest, a regular, hasn't said a word. Little man, later named Mickey G. He was adopted by the show as a foal. Well, guess what? He is all growing up now. Here he is last week at Cambridge Stud. He's getting to the back end of his weanling preparation. He's been weaned off and he is going to head to the yearling sales. He's turning into a beauty, isn't he? By Sword Estate. And his brother, Charwolf, races tomorrow at Rose Hill. We do have an update. Brendan and Joe Lindsay, who have been so good to us, allowing us into this horse's life. They have had offers to buy him as a weanling, so offers to buy him as is now. They discussed it. He came to me, Brendan, he said, no, we made a commitment to the Guerin report, we made a commitment to your viewers to letting them watch this horse go through the early stage of his career. So he will be staying in Cambridge Stud ownership. He'll be heading to the yearling sales next year. We will go along for the ride and see where the other Mickey G ends up. We thank Brendan and Joe. We look forward to seeing more of your little man in season 2 coming up via September. It's been a wonderful experience for me to bring you all these fantastic stories. To all our guests and those, of course, we didn't get a chance to mention tonight, thank you for letting us into your lives. To my producer, Alex Chapman, to Sam Herard, his assistant, and to all our team here at Trackside who do things I have no idea how to do. Thank you very much for letting us tell these wonderful stories. If that has tweaked your interest in any of our episodes, all 31, including tonight, available to you to watch online at trackside.co.nz. Alex and I have started working on our list, our hit list for next season. We have some beauties coming up. We look forward to bringing you more of those racing stories here on Trackside starting next September. If you've watched any of the shows, thank you for taking time out of your Monday nights. From the Guerin Report, we say good night.